How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and do, I believe it's just a mission, not a contract this one, called Contamination Removal. It wants me to go, you got to go down to the mine in like the bottom left hand corner, just to drive through a square to kind of activate the mission. Seems pretty pointless. So I'm going to drive along this road. I'm going to try and cut up the river so I can kind of jump from that inner road to the outer road, just because then it's easier to get to the road leading up to the mine. Otherwise I'll have to sort of go the longer way round through that sort of yard where you unlock a truck repair square thing. And then I believe the containers appear along like the southern road, so then I'm going to have to follow that all the way back along, go past the garage, up the right hand side of the map, and you've got to drop them off at the same yard where you can build the cabins or the consumables. And yeah, for this mission I decided to take out the Tatra Phoenix. I kind of, every now and then I sort of flick past some of these. I went and bought a load of Russian vehicles just so I don't have to keep travelling through the gateways to go and buy them for each mission, because every now and then I've been getting blue screened when I do that. Yeah, so I've got a couple of Tatras kind of sat in my garage. I keep wanting to find like a mission to use them really, but part of the problem is they're pretty lacking on the add-ons, and this crane you can add on, even though it does look pretty grand and all the rest of it for like a, it's basically a small crane. It's just sort of medium sized and it's pretty bulky. It gets in the way quite a lot on the chassis of the truck. So once you've got this crane equipped, you can't have a sideboard, and then as well this truck in general doesn't have a saddle low, so you've only got a saddle high, hence why I've got this bigger fatter trailer, which if I had the option I would have brought something with a saddle low, either brought that blue trailer like the sideboard semi-trailer, or the step deck again, because it's got a little step deck section for the old loaf. Goddamn horse, got to bring him with me. There was a bit of driving in this mission, so for one, the Tatra Phoenix has got 345 litres of fuel, so it's pretty decent. You should be able to get a fair old way on it. And then yeah, obviously the loaf is an extra 200 litres if and when I need it. And yeah, as I was driving the Phoenix kind of all the way down here to this gold mine, or yeah, I think it's a gold mine. It doesn't really say. You got to do a mission later where you pick up gold, but to be fair, you do in the kind of yard that's in the bottom right of the map as well. This truck though, to be fair, I believe it actually managed to stay in high gear the whole way from the garage. Well, I went in auto a little bit along like the main road just after I came out of the garage, but from then on I believe I was stuck in high gear all the way, and it actually, even though there's a few patches where it wheel spins a bit and sort of slows down overall, that's one thing I always liked about this truck when they first gave it us back on I can't remember the name of the region now, but it's the one that had factory grounds and the Antonovsky Nature Reserve or something. And yeah, this was always the better truck out of the two. It's always been pretty lenient and quite nice. In high gear, it feels like whatever it is they do as like the background coding to mess around with like the gearboxes and engines and rev limits and speed limits and all that sort of stuff, it seems like they've got this truck pretty nicely spot on. It's I don't know, just when you like driving it in high gear, not only does it feel like you can hear the power, like engine and noise wise and all the rest of it, it feels like it's applying it pretty consistently. It doesn't give up the second you hit a patch of terrain that appears to have just been coded to slow you down. It does slow the truck down overall, but yeah, the fact that your power still keeps going and you still get some grip instead of just pure wheel spinning, yeah, you just end up like you get to maintain like a pretty nice pace, as I'm doing now, because a mission like this is probably a good example of, so I'm setting off from the garage and I'm cutting across the bottom of the map to that warehouse in like the gold mine or whatever in the bottom right, oh sorry, bottom left. If I was in, I don't know, say the Derry 15C, since that's a new vehicle, just this trip alone would probably take me, I don't know, say a solid 10 minutes probably, instead of like, it's going to be nearer 5 minutes really. I'm already 4.5 minutes in, but I probably spent a minute sort of talking at the beginning of that. Yeah, that shaves quite a considerable amount of time overall. Now going like there and back is going to be 10-minute-ish trip instead of a 20-minute trip, which obviously like literally halves the length of the video. This was the bit I was quite interested in. I've never even tried or thought about it before. It just turned out to be, would be pretty handy to be able to do it tonight. Is yeah, this inner road you kind of can cut across the river here, and you've got the waterfall just to the right of you, where I believe there's some drilling spare parts that have gone over the waterfall. Yeah, but then slightly further up the river, there's kind of like the outermost southern road that cuts along as well, and I wanted to know if it was possible just to kind of, yeah, cut this bit out, because if I went along the southern road to get to here, it's just a longer distance to travel, plus for the sakes of this video I'm going to end up going back that way, so just to save kind of, you know, preferably if I can help it, I don't like to double back on myself, I like to go in like more of a lap. But yeah, it just worked out nicely if I could then cut across to this outer road, because then that'd save me going like the longer way round. There's not really a good way to cut across through these trees on my right unless you go kind of further north on the map and then sort of cut round and come back down the map, which, yeah, it's just further to travel. And thankfully, pleased to say, yeah, cutting across that river was actually pretty doable, pretty viable. It wasn't even a case of like, you know, you need the biggest, strongest, best truck in the game or anything. It wasn't too much of a punishment. The river wasn't all coded to be like super boggy, or it wasn't too deep or anything. The banks at the side were all kind of nice and smoothed out reasonably enough to where you can actually cruise along. Considering as well I'm dragging this big fat heavy trailer behind me. Can't remember, what do they call this trailer? I can't, I've seen it 100 times, it's one of them. I've read it so many times and yet I won't be able to quote what its name is if my life depended on it. But yeah, again, you can see even through that muddy section I just went through when I kind of went round the sharp corner as well, still stayed in high gear. I remember going up this little track. There's one little spot just coming up now where there's like a little bit of a valley between the rocks that's boggier mud. I kind of sent that, I think, over to the left, just so I kept a few wheels kind of on the firmer ground at the side. I don't know if it would have stopped me completely or not, but again, this thing actually managed to skip along the edge in high gear. And I mean, overall it's got quite small tyres, this truck has, so in some places you'd expect it to get stuck quite easily. I can't remember as well, I think you can take the front bumper off this one as well. I ended up, as I was flicking through my vehicles, I was actually looking through my garage already for a like the original Tega, and then just eventually when I was scrolling through I seen this. I quite like the paint job I had on it, the orange and white, also got a matching loaf. Yeah, this must have been one of the Tatra Phoenixes I built back when we got that phase. It was pretty far down in my garage. And then yeah, just already had the crane on it and stuff. I quickly went to check that I could get some kind of saddle on it, and yeah, only saddle high, but that'll do. And yeah, so that's how I ended up picking this truck really for the mission. And yeah, I don't really know why you got to come down to this mine at the bottom. Those boxes there, by the way, are there 5 lots of gold. It's for a different mission where you got to transport 8 lots of gold. I just activated the mission the other day because it was never telling me where I've got to go to get the gold. But on some of the missions and contracts, once you actually activate it, it sometimes doesn't show up straight away, but then later on it'll sort of show up on the map. Yeah, but once you drive through this mine, like I say, you have to just drive through a blue square that it activates like a checkpoint, so those 5 secure containers that are sort of sat along the south of the map appear, and that's it really. Again, I don't really know what the point is of having to come to this mine, because all the boxes are kind of scattered along the southern road. They're not really anything to do with this. But yeah, we made it that far. Pretty easy, simple trip as well. Started smashing my truck up a bit there on the rocks. But yeah, overall I'd say this Tatra Phoenix ended up being like a pretty good choice for this mission. Still would be nice though. Apparently with Tatra, when they kind of did the deal with SnowRunner, there's only a rumour I've heard that I think they didn't want certain things, like I think they didn't want a saddle low, for example, because they didn't want small trailers. They only wanted like the trucks hauling big trailers or something. I don't know if that's true or not, but there could be something to it, because it does seem odd how limited the Tatra Phoenix and stuff is. It was around the time as well when they're actually adding a few more options to some trucks, and you were even getting to see like roof racks on trucks and stuff, which we weren't really getting until around then. But yeah, for whatever reason they kind of went the other way with this one and made it pretty limited. And even though it's got like its own custom sideboard, but as you can see, it's just from where the crane sits, because it sits behind the second axle, it just, yeah, ends up sitting halfway down like the empty chassis space you got at the back of the truck. It's a little bit in that respect like the Dolphin. The Dolphin, you can't have the crane, the sideboard and a trailer, because the crane sits behind the second axle again, so it hogs a bit of space. and then it has to push the sideboard back, and then yeah, you can't get a trailer on top of that. This thing goes one step further and you can't even fit a sideboard on at all. And to be honest, the crane, to me it's just like a small crane. It doesn't really feel like it has any more reach than some of the little cranes, and in the times I've used it, I mean, it does its job just about, but it still feels on the weak side for no apparent reason. I think even when I'm doing these missions, like now, I'm picking up single size, like, you know, one slot cargo, and it sort of struggles even to like lift the crane arm up. It's a bit odd, this crane. It sort of feels like it's hampered most by like its own weight and size. It'd at least be pretty cool if they made it like a ridiculously strong crane. At least you'd get some advantage to having it like hog the entire rear of the truck. Cutting through that river, yeah, smashed on the rock a bit there. Like I say, I'm pretty sure this is the truck where you can remove the bottom front bumper, but like I say, just because I found it in my garage already sort of done up, I just grabbed it and that was it. That's what she said. Notes as well, because this truck's got rear steer. It's kind of handy, I suppose. Like in certain situations, it helps you kind of float nicely around the tight corners. But every now and then, when you're driving along, maybe it's just because with this heavy trailer as well, there's like quite a bit of weight sat over the rear axles. But every now and then, once the back end starts to steer, it kind of flicks out quite quickly on you, and you can just about catch it, but you end up snaking a little bit down some roads. It just, yeah, kind of the back end tries to overtake the front end a bit quicker than your steering can react. You can see now it's quite a slow crane to sort of fold out. I think it's the yellow crane is rapid. I mean, it does the job for these. It's lifting it there. It seemed alright getting the crane to about that point, and maybe because it's like a bit retracted at the minute, but yeah, there was times when it didn't even really want to like lift it in the air. His legs didn't want to come up properly. Again, that's what she said. I don't know, I left the crane arm out for this one just because I figured, for whatever reason, whoever dropped all these secure containers decided to drop them periodically along the entire road, so you, yeah, kind of just collecting one at a time, a bit more driving. I don't think it really matters too much with the crane. I noticed the front was probably lacking a little bit of grip there, maybe with the crane's putting a bit of weight over the rear. But once it's folded up, it's kind of, I don't know, I suppose because it sits so like in the middle of the truck, it probably doesn't add that much weight to the front. And this container is kind of off the road a bit. Now I pulled up now, and you can see from the green ring around the crane, I'm well within, like, I could reach that cargo. For some reason though, the game decides no I can't, and it just wouldn't offer me like the winch crane option to attach it. I don't know if it's like, it's because it's kind of downhill a bit as well from where my truck is, but still, it's a bit sketchy. Like, it was clearly within where my crane should be able to reach. But yeah, moved a little bit closer, and job's a good one. See, with the crane now, like, I'm pressing, is it L1 the whole time, trying to lift the whole boom up in the air, and I'm also holding triangle to kind of retract the cable. Yeah, it's barely like lifting the crane. I mean, it's quite a nice looking crane, I will say. Out of all of the like the little ones, this one looks pretty cool, and I assume it's colour coded, unless by chance I painted it. No, it must be colour coded. I noticed as well with these secure containers where they're putting them, they seem to place them along the map everywhere there's like an extra boggy bit of mud, just so then after you've grabbed the cargo, you sort of, it takes a little bit longer to set off. You can't just immediately stick it in high gear. To be fair though, this truck feels like quite a nice one to drive along. These are the only bits really where I was kind of stuck in auto, I suppose. I couldn't really, if I stuck it in high now, it'd stall most likely. But I think the whole night it I don't think it tried kicking me out of high gear once. It's funny as well, because the high gear always feels like a nice pace when you're going along these dirt roads, and then when you get high gear on the actual roads, I'm convinced it goes slower. So it might have been Justin said ages ago the TUZ 420, that seems to go faster off-road than it does on-road, and I reckon it's true, and it does, and I think it's with a high gear as well. Unless it just feels faster because you're on like tighter, windier roads, but when you're driving in high gear along like a tarmac roads, it feels like the slowest it's going. See, again, the crane still not too happy about lifting into the air. It's not the end of the way. Like I say, it gets to about there, alright. But if I really wanted to like lift the cargo right in the air, the crane's a bit awkward about it. See, and again, this, where I grabbed that package from, there's like a little swampy, boggy section here. Not that it matters particularly, I just kind of noticed it. I assume whoever was doing this mission must have made some kind of conscious effort to be like, right, make this patch of mud a little bit more awkward. Soon back in high gear though, cruising along nicely. This southern road's actually like quite a nice road to drive on this game. It's got bumpy sections and so on, but for the most part it doesn't feel like it's been overdone as far as like coding to slow you down, so you can actually yeah, just get a nice little pace going really. And again, the nice thing about that is you're now going fast enough to where you just got to pay a bit of attention, and you feel like you're kind of getting something done, not just crawling along like a snail. That's probably one of the few places actually, because I kind of pulled over to the grass on the right, I was able to drop my hammer and get it going. And this last box, again, they've definitely put this in the most awkward place possible, because you've got like this dip, boggy ditch thing going on now that you've got to go through, and then the whole kind of area's leaning quite a lot anyway, so I'm already scuffing my bumper there. I tried to go along like the edge of the road, thinking in theory the crane should reach. The trailer sort of twisted a little bit there, got a bit leany, so I thought, right, stick the handbrake on, we'll give it a go from here. Got me crane legs out just in case. Thankfully, I believe, yeah, it did actually let me get the cargo. A little bit close there, trailer started to lean a little bit as well. So what I did at this point, there's a little edit here just because I was messing around, but I essentially just moved the crane over, using it as a counterbalance really, just to kind of help not tip to the left as we're looking down the hill. Don't use this method that often, but every now and then it comes in handy, just because I thought it's a bit awkward and like the trailer's on a bit of a slope anyway, trying to load it on the trailer at the minute would be a bit of a hopeless effort, so I'll try and yeah, use it as counterbalance and just get out of this little ditch thing going on first. However, the truck wasn't too keen on it. It was kind of like the wheels, the axles were just kind of scooting along the edge of that hill. It wouldn't really bump me back up onto the road. I think to a degree the trailer at the back, like the saddle high trailer, considering it's a big old fat thing, it sits quite low. I think that's scuffing on the like the brow of this sort of hill at the minute, and then it's essentially sort of lifting enough weight off my truck to where I'm not really getting any grip. Jiggling the steering around a bit though, trying to figure something out. This mission was going so nice and smooth. And then yeah, like I say, this last one, they must have done it on purpose, because you got that dip, then it's leaning, then you got to balance right on the edge of the road because it's kind of rolled down the hill a bit, and they know you're going to be coming from that other way because you have to go to the mine checkpoint thing first. So I started crawling forward a bit, sort of blipping the throttle because it's kind of wrenching the trailer through the terrain a little bit at this point. Yeah, the crane though is working pretty well as kind of a counterbalance. A bit more jiggling with the steering. Well, I kind of got to this point. I think this is where I thought, right, I'll get the crane and that done, pack the trailer. Yeah, I think at this point it's just the trailer and probably the legs of it as well are kind of buried in the ground at the minute. At least they still let you do this, where you can just unpack the cargo, repack it, and it just keeps loading it on the back. It'd be a bit of a pain in the arse if they stop that, if you have to keep disconnecting the trailer each time and driving alongside it. Yeah, even low range diffs on all the rest of it, it's not quite having it, so it's winch time. But again, I don't mind that, like this level of winching in these sort of missions. It's not like the whole road is a complete joke or anything, it's just, yeah, it seems like they purposely put the cargo off to the side a bit, but it is what it is. Caught out a little bit, the old winch is always there as a backup. Just as long as it doesn't become like Winch Runner, where you just pretty much have to use that permanently. That was, I suppose, one of the things like with the Mandra, there's quite a lot, there's quite a few snowy places on that was, you just pretty much can't get through unless you're using the winch the whole time, which, yeah, sort of gets old a little bit quickly. Once, you know, your vehicle is just not good enough for the terrain, it sort of feels a bit pointless bringing those kind of trucks. It was going so nicely then, it was getting a nice little run up the hill. I think I caught a bloody dead tree on the floor, so it kind of snagged on my trailer and just twanged me backwards, which obviously completely lost all my speed. Now I'm going to have to crawl up here in first gear. I reckon as well, if it wasn't for that, I probably would have had enough pace to make it up here in a high. But again, it's been pretty good to me all night, this truck, so I don't mind the odd little patches where I've got to take my time a bit. It's like the nicer the game is to you, on generally when you're driving a vehicle, that's when halfway through the mission or something you get a little hiccup or something thrown in that makes it a bit more complicated. I kind of don't mind it as much once a mission's been trolling you for the first half an hour or whatever, and then it starts doing stuff on top of that. That's when it gets like, oh, God, I just want to fight. That's enough of that game. I want to get the mission done, get it banked. Yeah, I think again the trailer kind of got bottomed out as on the brow of that hill. Thankfully there's that one tree to the left that was like a solid tree, so I could actually pull against it hard as I wanted. That's what she said. And yeah, you can see though, for the most part, this road's pretty nice. Oh yeah, with the live stream that as well. Yeah, apologies. I like obviously it's just going to keep blue screening me. I have heard though they're working on a patch apparently. I don't know when it's coming out or anything, but I believe one is on the way, which is kind of better than nothing. They're certainly taking their sweet time on this one. Normally they get a patch out within like a week or two of when the phase releases. Yeah, this time it's been, I think, well over a month. But fingers crossed, this patch like fixes the issue a bit, because the only other option I've got is to pretty much delete all my mods, which I really don't want to, because I don't know. I kind of like, it's a bit like when I do these maps and I leave trailers and trucks here, there, and everywhere. I kind of like it because then when I look back, like if I went back to a different phase now, I'll just see trucks like here, there and everywhere and go, oh yeah, I remember that was when I did that mission. And I don't know, the maps sort of feel more, I don't know if like lived in is the right word, but I kind of, yeah, I can look around and it feels like it's been completed. I've got all my various trucks and loafs stashed here, there and everywhere that help me get the job done. And I suppose it's the same in like the mod playthrough really. I've kind of been doing the missions just with mods, so they're going to be all over the place. And yeah, if I turn all the mods off, obviously I'm going to delete the vast majority of trucks that are even on that playthrough to begin with. So hopefully this patch actually fixes something. Still not heard anything either with the is it Mac and Kenworth? They're supposed to be adding DLC trucks, but I've not seen anything going on with that recently. I thought they would have been along pretty quickly as well. Maybe they are having like a little bit of trouble. Maybe something's taking longer than expected, because the fact that they haven't released a patch that quickly and those DLC trucks as well have not appeared. Almost seems now like it probably make more sense just to wait until the next phase at this point, because I imagine quite a lot of people have completed the bulk of missions on this phase by now. There, by the way, I just stopped, transferred some fuel with a loaf. I think I only transferred enough so this Phoenix has got like 30 litres or something, because I don't know why, it was just the hell of it. I kind of knew when I was driving up this side of the map that I go past a fuel station anyway, so just I suppose, even though it's very unlikely I'll ever actually dip into the reserves, but I just figured I'll keep the fuel in the roof rack of the loaf, and then yeah, at some future mission, you never know, I might be driving nearby and there's a loaf with fuel on it. I just figured there's no point in draining all the low fuel and then driving past a fuel station and kind of not taking the opportunity. See now though, this is with the truck when you're in high gear. Is this as fast as it was going down those kind of dirt roads? I don't know. But then these days, I tried it in auto here and there, auto really isn't doing a lot these days on these roads. Which, if anything, they should be flying along on this. Like I say, maybe they have nerfed it like that, so trucks aren't going along at like that mad pace where they feel like they're skidding around on black ice. Because I've managed to make 1 or 2 vehicles do it, and to be fair, once you actually do get up into like 8th gear or whatever, you do start skidding around like a mad one, so maybe they have sort of done it on purpose to limit that. Annoyingly, I was going to try and do a drive-by and get my fuel without stopping, but it brings up the cargo management thing first and asks if you want barrels of fuel, so that cocked me up. I had to reverse and click through the menu to get the right one, but we got some juice and we're away. See, it's almost like there the pace felt pretty good with the high gear, and then it almost drops back a few miles an hour once you're actually ticking along up to speed. I don't know if it's like at that point it kind of winds off the revs, maybe. God knows. And yeah, this is like the easy home straight of the mission now, but even then this took me pretty much half an hour, so you imagine like, and this truck was keeping pretty good pace really, so I think it ended up taking, it was probably a bit longer than 5 minutes by the time I got to the yard, but yeah, still I think with like a Derry 15C or whatever, the new Derry Special, or just something anyway like in the Advanced Special, that sort of gearbox is going to be take you probably a good 40-45 minutes to get this mission done. I don't really know where the last 20 odd minutes went, because it didn't feel like it took that long overall to get the cargo containers. I suppose there was that bit where I got stuck getting the last one. It's tempting at this point, although I wouldn't recommend it. I was like, do I hit the roundabout and do a jump? But to be fair, I don't think I would have got very far with the trailer and all the rest of it anyway. Tatra probably would be a I don't know, it's kind of got small tyres. If it had no crane and all the rest of it on it, I suppose it can get a bit of speed going, so I suppose I'll have to try the Royal at some point as well, because that thing used to be, at least, was like the quickest truck in the game really. That was got the furthest distance when you jump it off the White Valley cliffs, so that one, if anything, has got the best. I want to jump a truck and then kind of grind the axe handle and go off the top of it, and then whatever happens after then. Preferably land it on my wheels would be pretty cool, but that's the main thing. See if I can grind it, and then yeah, bit of Tony Hawk's pro trucking. Yeah, I drove to this point and I was like, okay, now what? Looking around, I was like, oh yeah, shit, there's a square behind me. I think that square I just drove into is where you get the mission from. And yeah, I suppose I was just autopilot like driving back in there. My Voron D parked up nice and neat. That's the one I keep driving back to, that bloody where you craft the cabins and everything, just to remember or recheck what materials you need to build each thing. Yeah, drop them 5 off. And to be fair, there's no animation or anything. It does say like thanks and all that, and check your bank balance. To be fair, 17 odd grand is a pretty hefty chunk. It was quite a nice payout for this sort of mission. But yeah, that's another one in the bag. That's about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf because he's a goddamn beast. And I'll be back soon.